For 3,000 years, the galaxy had been quiet. Too quiet. The galactic truce had lasted longer than most species could even imagine. Whole empires had risen and fallen in that time. Stars had burned out, colonies had been abandoned, and languages had changed beyond recognition. To many of the younger races, the ancient war between humanity and the alien coalition was nothing but an old tale, a legend told to frighten children. But to the elders, the ones who remembered the scars, it was no story. It was a warning. The truce had been signed in fire. Humanity and the alien coalition had fought across 1,000 systems, each side burning worlds to ash. In the end, both sides had agreed never again. A line had been drawn across the stars, dividing human space from alien space. That line was sacred. It had never been crossed. Until tonight, far from the busy lanes of trade and diplomacy, there lay a nameless system. It had no valuable planets, no colonies, no reason to visit. Just a dying star, its light dim, and a few barren rocks circling in silence. No one lived there. No one watched. Or so the galaxy believed. From the darkness, a fleet emerged. Alien ships, their hulls marked with the crest of the Cathari Dominion, slid into orbit around the dead star. The Cathari were one of the oldest members of the coalition, proud and ambitious. They had waited centuries for this moment. Their leader, Admiral Varric, stood on the command deck of his flagship, staring at the hollow star before him. His voice was low, cold, filled with triumph. 3,000 years of waiting. 3,000 years of humiliation. Tonight the line is broken. Tonight the humans will remember their place. The fleet's crew whispered among themselves. Some were eager, others afraid. They knew the stories. They knew what humanity had once been. But their leaders had assured them humanity was no longer a threat. They had grown soft in peace. Their armies were scattered, their weapons old, their will broken, or so the coalition believed. The galactic truce was not simply a treaty. It was carved into the very laws of the galaxy. Each species swore never to cross the boundary again. Breaking it meant not just war, but dishonor. For 3 millennia, the truce had held. Even during disputes, even when empires collapsed, no one dared to test it. Humanity stayed on their side. The coalition stayed on theirs, but ambition is a dangerous thing. To the Cathari, the truce was not peace. It was a chain around their necks. They wanted more power, more space. And the humans, they believed, were the perfect target. The coalition had spent centuries watching humanity. They saw no great wars, no grand fleets parading through the stars. Humans lived quietly, building cities, trading with neutral species and telling old tales of their ancient power. The Cathari mistook quiet for weakness. The first strike was not loud. It was silent, a human border outpost, perched on a lonely asteroid near the truce line, suddenly went dark. One moment its signal pulsed across the stars. The next, nothing. At first, other stations thought it was a malfunction. Systems failed all the time on such remote rocks. But then a second outpost vanished, then a third. No distress calls, no survivors, just silence. The humans noticed. Of course they noticed. Their long-range sensors recorded strange movements near the border. Fleets forming, weapons powering. But what disturbed the galaxy most was not the disappearances. It was the rumors, whispers spread through the trading hubs and council chambers. Alien captains swore they had heard strange things on human channels. Laughter, not panic, not anger, laughter. The humans were laughing at the threat. In the coalition's great council chambers, the news was met with excitement. Finally, after 3,000 years, the balance of power was shifting. Chancellor Dyrath of the Cathari stood tall before the gathered races. His words echoed across the chamber. The humans are weak. Their time is over. They will kneel, or they will burn. The truce is a relic. We must strike before they awaken. Some alien leaders nodded, eager for conquest. Others hesitated. The elders among them remembered the old war. They remembered planets reduced to ash and fleets vanishing in firestorms. They remembered how humanity fought, not like soldiers, but like predators. But the Cathari drowned out the voices of caution. They promised victory. They promised spoils. And above all, they promised that humanity had forgotten how to fight. The council voted. The truce was broken. War was declared. The galaxy waited for Earth's response. They expected fury, fear, desperate pleas for negotiation. But the humans said nothing. No speeches were broadcast. No fleets rushed to the border. Instead, silence, and then, after weeks of waiting, a single transmission. It was short. Only one word. Finally, the aliens froze. Confusion spread through the council chambers. Finally, what did that mean? The word carried no fear, no weakness. It sounded amused. That night across the galaxy, aliens whispered in their homes, their barracks, their ships. What kind of species laughs at the start of a war? On the Cathari flagship, Admiral Varric dismissed the rumors. He told his officers the humans were bluffing, a dying empire clinging to pride. Nothing more, but deep inside even he felt a flicker of unease. The humans had not reacted as expected. There were no cries for help, no protests at the council, no attempts to hide their weakness. Just silence and laughter. From Earth, no news escaped. Traders who once visited human space were turned away. Neutral ships that crossed too close to the line were warned, do not enter. Something was happening in human space, something hidden, and the galaxy could only watch. The stage was set. The truce was broken. The first fleets had moved. Outposts had vanished, and yet, instead of collapsing, the humans stood silent, smiling, laughing. No one knew why. No one knew what was coming, but whispers spread through the void. Humanity was waiting for war, waiting for the hunt, and when the humans laugh at war, the galaxy should be afraid. For 3,000 years the truce had held, a fragile promise carved into the stars, a line no one dared to cross. But now that line was broken. The Cathari Dominion had made the first move, and the galaxy waited for the human response. What came next was nothing anyone could have imagined. The demand came first. It was broadcast across every council channel, carried on open frequencies so that even the smallest colonies would hear it. The Cathari Chancellor's voice was sharp and commanding, dripping with arrogance. He spoke of justice, of reclaiming honor, of punishing humans for their centuries of defiance. The demand was clear. Humanity must kneel, surrender its fleets, and place itself under alien rule. Refuse and face annihilation. The speech was long, filled with threats and promises. The galaxy listened. Many species waited to see how the humans would react. Surely Earth would beg for peace. Surely they would plead with the Council. Surely after 3,000 years humanity had grown soft. But Earth did not reply. Not immediately. Hours passed. Then a full day. Then 3. The coalition grew restless, mistaking silence for fear. The Cathari fleet moved deeper into border space, seizing abandoned outposts and raising their banners high. The younger races cheered them on. The humans, they said, were nothing but ghosts of an old legend. The war was already won, and then came the reply. It was not a speech, not a plea, not even a warning. It was a single word, broadcast from Earth to every listening ship, every council world, every corner of the galaxy. A word that carried no fear, no weakness, only something colder, sharper, something that made the alien elders whisper in unease. Finally, that was all. No more, no less. The younger races laughed when they heard it. They mocked humanity for their arrogance, calling it the desperate bluff of a dying species. But the elders did not laugh. They remembered the old war. They remembered how humans fought. And the word finally sounded less like a boast and more like a promise. As the galaxy argued, the first strike fell. The Cathari sent a fleet of 200 warships into the human colony of Vera's Reach. It was a fertile world, home to millions of settlers, guarded only by a small defense station. The aliens expected surrender. They expected to terrify the humans into submission with fire and threats. But when the fleet arrived, the colony did not panic. The defense station did not plead for help. Instead, the human governor sent one short message before cutting the channel. His voice was calm, almost amused. You shouldn't have come here. Then the stars lit up. The defense station, thought to be little more than a relic, came alive with hidden weapons. Entire batteries unfolded from its hull, firing with a precision that spoke of practice, not desperation. Alien ships fell in flames within minutes, their shields shredded by weapons no one had seen in millennia. But that was not all. From the shadow of Vera's moon, something stirred. The Cathari laughed at first, thinking it was an old cargo vessel or a mining barge. But when it moved into the light, their laughter died. It was not a barge. It was not a relic. It was a warship, a dreadnought. Its hull was black, scarred from battles older than the Coalition itself. Ancient markings ran along its sides, half-worn yet unmistakable. This was no museum piece. This was a predator in hibernation, awakened after 3,000 years. The dreadnought fired once, just once, and an entire squadron of Cathari ships ceased to exist. Panic spread through the alien fleet. Admirals shouted orders, captains begged for reinforcements, but it was too late. The battle was not a battle, it was an execution. In less than an hour, the Cathari armada was broken. Survivors fled, their ships limping back to Coalition space. They carried with them a story no one wanted to believe. The humans were not weak. They had not grown soft. They had been waiting for the truce to break, waiting for someone foolish enough to test them again. Across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than fleets could travel. The humans are laughing. The humans are smiling. The humans are ready. The Coalition had made the first strike. But it was humanity who answered. And their answer was clear. The war had returned. And this time, the humans welcomed it. For centuries, the galaxy had believed that humanity was at peace because it had no choice. That its fleets had been dismantled, its weapons sealed away, its will to fight buried under the weight of the truce. The Coalition believed this lie because it was comforting, because it allowed them to think of humans as ordinary. But humans had never been ordinary. After the battle at Vera's Reach, the galaxy demanded answers. How had a single colony destroyed a fleet of 200 warships? How had a dreadnought, an ancient beast from the war of 3 millennia past, appeared from nowhere? The Council accused humanity of deception, of violating the truce long before the Cathari did. But humans said nothing. They did not defend themselves. They did not explain. Instead, they prepared. Beneath Earth's oceans, where no telescope could see, great doors opened in the darkness. Caverns sealed for ages groaned as machinery awakened. Entire fleets, preserved in silence, stirred as though roused from sleep. The seas boiled with the rise of steel leviathans, their hulls plated with metals no alien eye had seen in living memory. On the barren moon of Callisto, vast hangars split open, revealing rows of warships hidden beneath the ice. They had been entombed there since the last war, their reactors dormant, their weapons sealed. Now one by one their engines roared to life. The ice cracked and shattered as black ships rose into orbit, silent and hungry. Even Mars, thought to be nothing but dust and ruins, revealed its secret. Beneath its red sands lay the iron catacombs, chambers carved deeper than mountains, where the oldest war machines had been stored. The first to emerge was colossal, an armored behemoth the size of a small city. Its name, etched along its hull in jagged, ancient script, was Iron Rain. The name alone was enough to send shivers across alien networks, for the Iron Rain was no myth. It was the ship that had ended the last war with a single strike. The galaxy could no longer pretend humanity was weak. Too many eyes had seen the truth. But what unsettled them most was not the size of the ships or the power of the weapons. It was the question no one could answer. Why had the humans hidden them? If they had kept their weapons out of fear, the galaxy might have understood. But the humans did not seem afraid. They seemed eager, as though they had been waiting for this moment. Rumors spread through the stars. Traders swore they saw convoys of human freighters, not carrying supplies, but entire starship parts. Colonists whispered that strange signals echoed from deep space, as though other armories, far beyond the truce line, were awakening too. and in the neutral zones, where humans sometimes mingled with aliens. Their expressions were the most disturbing of all. Smiles, cold. Sharp smiles whenever the subject of war was raised. Inside the coalition, fear began to fester. Admirals who once mocked humanity now demanded stronger fleets. Politicians who had shouted for war grew quiet. The younger races, who had never seen a true human battle, asked their elders for the truth. The elders did not answer. They remembered too much. Admiral Vanish, still recovering from his humiliating defeat, swore the dreadnoughts were a trick, an illusion meant to scare them. Yet when his officers pressed him, he could not deny what he had seen. A single human ship tearing through his fleet as though it were nothing. In secret, he began to fear the worst, that humanity had not merely hidden its weapons, but improved them. That for 3,000 years, while the galaxy basked in peace, the humans had sharpened their blades in the dark, and deep within human space, the truth was darker still. Not every armory had been opened. Not every fleet had yet awakened. What the aliens had seen at Vera's Reach was only the beginning, for humanity had built more than ships. They had built a future, a hidden arsenal of predators waiting for the hunt, and now the hunt had begun. The galaxy had waited, holding its breath. The first skirmishes at the border had shown enough to stir fear, but the coalition was not ready to admit the truth. They told themselves the defeat at Vera's Reach was chance, that the dreadnought was an isolated relic, that humanity could not possibly rise against the combined fleets of 100 worlds. So they gathered an armada. 1,000 ships forged from the mightiest shipyards of the coalition marched toward human space. To the Cathari and their allies, it was to be a demonstration of dominance, a blow so overwhelming that humans would collapse before they could resist. When the fleet entered the system of Soria's Gate, they expected submission. What they found was silence. Soria's Gate was a human mining colony, little more than a scattered ring of stations around a gas giant. Small, weak, barely defended. The aliens believed it would fall in minutes, but as their armada approached, the humans did not send envoys. They did not raise shields. They did not run. They sent one ship. It emerged from the shadow of the gas giant, its black hull absorbing the light of the distant star. The coalition watched in confusion. One ship against 1,000. Was this surrender? A gesture of desperation? The vessel's name flashed across alien senses, Iron Rain. Admiral Vanish, seated on the bridge of his flagship, felt his throat tighten. He had seen that name before, burned into ancient records. He had seen it tear through his fleet like a predator among prey. And now here it was, standing alone against his armada. The council officers jeered. They called it arrogance, human pride. But beneath their bravado, unease spread like poison. For humans were not known to fight fair. The Iron Rain moved forward, silent, deliberate, as though stalking the prey that had wandered into its hunting ground. It did not fire immediately. It simply advanced, daring the coalition to act. Vanish gave the order. 100 ships broke formation and surged forward, weapons blazing. Missiles streaked through the void. Beams of plasma lit up the darkness. The humans did not dodge. They did not retreat. The Iron Rain fired once. A lance of light erupted from its main cannon, tearing through space. The first wave of coalition ships disintegrated in an instant, their shields collapsing as though made of paper. Where 100 had charged, only wreckage remained, spinning silently into the gas giant's pull. The galaxy had expected human weapons to be old, clumsy, outdated. Instead, they were precise, efficient, terrifying. The Iron Rain advanced again. Panic spread through the coalition armada. Captains shouted orders, some breaking formation, others charging blindly in desperation. The dreadnought answered with calm brutality. Its secondary batteries unleashed storms of fire, targeting weak points with surgical accuracy. Alien cruisers exploded like kindling. Frigates vanished in streaks of light. But it was not the destruction that chilled the survivors. It was the human response. Across the open channels, coalition ships picked up voices. Not screams, not cries of desperation, laughter. The humans were laughing as they fought. Varric ordered the fleet to retreat, but retreat was chaos. The Iron Rain pursued, relentless, cutting down stragglers with mechanical precision. Only a fraction of the 1,000 ships managed to escape, limping back across the border. The survivors carried with them a story the Coalition did not want to hear. Humanity was not fighting for survival. Humanity was enjoying the war. In council chambers, debates turned to panic. How could one ship destroy an armada? What other weapons did the humans hide? Why did they laugh? Some demanded immediate peace, begging to restore the truce. Others shouted for a full-scale invasion, desperate to crush the humans before more dreadnoughts emerged. But the elders shook their heads. They knew this was only the beginning. The humans had sent one ship against 1,000, and the ship had returned victorious. The fire in the stars had only just begun. The council chamber had never been so silent. Once it had been a place of constant noise, of bickering voices, of deals struck in whispers, of empires flexing their pride. But now the silence was heavy, pressing down like the weight of a dying star. The surviving admirals had returned, their fleets shattered, their faces pale with fear. They spoke in broken voices, describing the battle at Soria's gate, 1,000 ships reduced to wreckage by a single human vessel. The Iron Rain. Most of the younger races did not believe it. They could not. It was easier to think the reports exaggerated, that the dreadnought was some rare anomaly, some desperate trick. But the elders said nothing. They remembered. 3,000 years ago they had fought the humans. They had seen what humanity could do when cornered, when challenged, when unleashed. They remembered how worlds had burned, how fleets had vanished in hours, how the humans had ended the war not with victory, but with restraint. That was the detail the younger races never understood. Humanity had not been defeated. Humanity had stopped. Now, in the chamber, whispers turned to terror. What if they never stopped building? One delegate asked, his voice trembling, "They have dreadnoughts hidden in every system," another cried. "They planned for this. They were waiting for this." Admiral Varric, his pride still raw from defeat, slammed his claws against the table. "Nonsense. They hid scraps of their old fleets, nothing more. They cannot stand against us if we unite. They laugh to frighten us, nothing more." But even as he spoke, he knew the words rang hollow. The memory of his fleet's annihilation haunted him. One ship had destroyed his armada, one ship. And the humans had not even unleashed their full strength. He had seen the calm way they fought, the precision, the lack of panic. They were not desperate. They were confident. The Chancellor of the Vayari Confederacy rose, her tendrils coiling in unease. 3,000 years ago, the humans asked for peace, she said softly. Do you not remember why? They said the war was boring, that there was no challenge left. They wanted to rest. The chamber erupted. Leaders shouted in disbelief, in anger, in fear. The word boring echoed through the air like a curse. No one wanted to believe it, but deep down they knew it was true. The humans had not begged for peace because they were beaten. They had asked for peace because they no longer cared to fight, and now they cared again. On the outer screens, fresh reports arrived. Human fleets were moving. Not one or two ships, but entire squadrons emerging from hidden armories across their territory. Colonies once thought defenseless revealed warships older and stronger than anything the Coalition had ever built. The humans were not scrambling to defend themselves. They were advancing. The panic grew. Some demanded negotiation. Others wanted to beg for another truce. But the younger, prideful races shouted them down. To admit fear was to admit weakness, and weakness was death. They argued humanity could still be crushed if they struck fast enough. But the elders, the ones who had survived the last war, sat in silence. They knew better. They had seen the truth behind the laughter. One elder finally rose, his voice breaking the chamber's chaos. "We should not ask how many ships they have," he said. "We should ask why they laugh. Do you not understand? They wanted this. They wanted us to break the truce. And now they are free." The chamber fell silent again. Across the galaxy, billions of ordinary aliens whispered in fear. The truce was dead. The humans were smiling, and the coalition's leaders were paralyzed, and far away, deep within human space, the fleets continued to awaken. The age of peace was ending. The age of humans was returning. Across the galaxy, the whispers had grown into roars of panic. The news traveled faster than any fleet could chase. Humans were no longer just defending themselves. They were hunting. For 3,000 years, humans had been quiet, patient, and hidden. Their fleets had lain dormant, their weapons sealed in armories buried beneath oceans, ice, and mountains. Their colonies had grown peacefully, trading, mining, and building infrastructure that seemed mundane to outsiders. But that was the mask. That was the patience of predators waiting for the hunt. Now that patience had ended. In the border systems, alien fleets scrambled. Scouts reported human dreadnoughts emerging from asteroid fields, from moons, from long-abandoned colonies. Ships that had been dormant for centuries. Their hulls, scarred from battles no one remembered, now glimmered in the light of distant suns, their weapon systems humming with power. Entire alien squadrons fell silent when they saw them. The humans were not attacking randomly. They were precise, calculated. Every strike was meant to demonstrate capability, to send a message. We are back, and we are not to be tested. In the council chambers, leaders argued, panicked, begged, and plotted. Many alien species had underestimated humanity, believing them a relic of war, weakened by centuries of peace. Now they understood the truth. Elders whispered about the legends of the last war. How humanity had ended massive coalitions with single fleets. How entire planetary systems had been neutralized in days. How humans had stopped, not out of mercy, but because they had chosen to, and now the humans had chosen again. From the edge of human space, fleets radiated outward. Not to conquer, not yet. To warn, to remind. The humans were apex predators, and they were reintroducing themselves to the galaxy. In neutral zones, freighters and traders reported strange phenomena, convoys moving in formations no one had seen, weapons firing in precision drills against simulations, and communications filled with laughter. The laughter was cold, deliberate, and terrifying. Admiral Varric's fleet had barely escaped the last encounter, and even in retreat, they did not return in order. Ships limped back, engines failing, hulls scarred. Varric himself spoke little, knowing the younger officers could not comprehend what had just occurred. They are not weak, he said to no one in particular. They were waiting. They were always waiting. The council demanded responses, but it was too late. Across the galaxy, human fleets coordinated movements with a precision the coalition could not match. Colonies thought defenseless now revealed fleets that could obliterate entire armadas. The humans did not strike indiscriminately, but their presence alone caused fear, confusion, and hesitation. In the neutral worlds, ambassadors received messages, simple, short, and chilling. You are not prepared. Do not test us. Even without firing a weapon, humanity's presence reshaped alliances. Some species sought hurried truces. Others began evacuations. Entire governments scrambled to mobilize forces that would not be enough. In the outer colonies, humans tested a few alien ships with their fleets, not to destroy them, not yet, but to demonstrate capability. A single human vessel could annihilate a squadron. Two could wipe out a task force. It was a calculated message. We are apex predators. Do not underestimate us. The galaxy began to whisper the same word across its systems. Hunt. Humans were no longer participants in diplomacy. They were hunters. Their patience had ended. Their amusement had returned, and their prey was the coalition itself. And deep within human space, the fleets continued to awaken. Hidden armories that had slept for centuries roared to life. Shipyards that had been abandoned for millennia churned, producing vessels that combined speed, firepower, and precision in ways the coalition could not anticipate. For the first time in 3,000 years, the balance of power shifted. Not slowly, not uncertainly. Instantly, decisively, and terrifyingly, the humans were back, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy had never seen such a fleet. Tens of thousands of ships, bristling with weapons, moving in perfect coordination, a shimmering wall of steel and fire. The alien coalition had gathered everything they could muster. Entire systems had emptied their fleets. Every warship they had could not be spared. It was to be the greatest armada in 3,000 years, and they believed it would crush humanity once and for all. The humans were waiting. They did not launch their entire force. That would have been unnecessary. They did not need numbers to terrify. They needed precision, calculation, and fear. And above all, they needed the coalition to see what they were up against before the final strike. From the outer rim, human dreadnoughts emerged. Ancient, massive, and terrifying, they glinted in the light of distant stars. Accompanying them were smaller warships. Fighters, frigates, all moving in perfect harmony, as if the fleets had been alive and waiting for the right moment for centuries. The first encounter was almost anticlimactic. Scouts reported the human fleets, and the alien admirals laughed. "A few relics," they said. "They are outnumbered. They cannot survive." Then the humans struck. One dreadnought fired a single salvo, aimed at the coalition's vanguard. Entire squadrons vanished. Not damaged, gone. The precision of the strike, the speed, the efficiency, left alien captains speechless. Their own weapons barely scratched the hulls of the human ships. Panic spread. The coalition tried to regroup, but chaos had already taken hold. Communications broke down as dreadnoughts targeted command vessels first. Without leaders to coordinate, fleets collided, turned on each other, or fled blindly into the void. And still, the humans advanced. In minutes, thousands of ships were destroyed. Fleets that had taken decades to build were reduced to debris fields, scattered across multiple star systems. The coalition had expected a battle. They had not expected execution, admirals shouted. Captains begged for orders. The council called for surrender. But the humans were not listening. They were hunting. And their hunters had been sharpened by centuries of waiting. From Earth, transmissions went out, not of demands, not of threats, but of amusement. "Is that all?" The voice was calm, almost bored, and yet it struck terror across the galaxy. The coalition's grand armada, the pride of their civilization, burned. Stars lit up with the flashes of explosions, the glint of torn metal, and the final screams of alien crews. Entire systems witnessed the annihilation through distant observation posts, and fear spread like wildfire. The survivors fled, limping back to their own space. Messages sent back to the council were fragmented, desperate. They are not fighting for survival. They are smiling. The council convened in panic. No plan could counter the humans. No fleet, no strategy, no alliance could withstand the precision and the cruelty that humanity wielded so effortlessly. The elders of every species whispered of old wars, of lost fleets, of humans that could end empires before breakfast, and the humans did not stop. They advanced, moving through the coalition lines as if the stars themselves obeyed them. Every strike was deliberate, every maneuver calculated, every laugh recorded in the communications of fleeing fleets. The galaxy realized the horrifying truth. The humans had not just returned to war, they had returned to remind everyone of their power, of what they had always been. By the time the last remnants of the armada fled beyond the edge of the contested systems, the coalition was in ruins. Strategic command centers lay in ashes. Millions of ships had been destroyed. Entire fleets were erased from existence. The humans did not celebrate. They did not gloat. They merely returned to formation, waiting, watching, silent hunters in the dark, and in the council chambers of the galaxy, terror reigned. Every alien race, every surviving leader, whispered the same name in fear: humans. The war was over before it truly began. But for the galaxy, there would be no peace. Not anymore. The apex predators had returned, and the stars themselves would remember. The galaxy was silent. Not the quiet of peace, but the heavy, tense silence of fear. Systems once proud, fleets once mighty, governments once unshakable, all had been humbled. The coalition that had believed itself untouchable had been shattered. Their grand armada, tens of thousands of ships strong, had burned in the void. Survivors fled, spreading tales of human fleets that moved like shadows, hunting with precision, laughing as they destroyed everything in their path. The council gathered one final time. It was not a meeting of power or diplomacy. It was a gathering of desperation. Every leader feared what would come next. They had expected negotiation, perhaps surrender, maybe even a plea for peace. They had not expected this. Admiral Varick sat silently, staring at the central holoscreen. The images of the destroyed armada flickered endlessly. He had survived the battles, yes, but only barely. His fleet was decimated, his pride destroyed, his mind haunted. He knew one thing: humanity had not fought its full strength. Not yet. Outside the council chambers, fleets of humans moved like shadows across the galaxy. From Earth, dreadnoughts, cruisers, and frigates spread outward, each mission carefully coordinated. Not all were for destruction. Some were for demonstration, some for warning, some for reconnaissance. But all carried the same message: humanity was back, and it was in control. The council deliberated desperately. Some wanted to surrender unconditionally. Others hoped to negotiate, offering territories, resources, anything to stop the humans. But the elders, those who had survived the last great war, shook their heads. They had seen this before. Humanity's offer was never simple. Its mercy was measured. And now humanity had decided there would be no mercy at all for those who had tested them. Then the transmissions came. Short, sharp, clear, across every system, every colony, every listening post. The truce is over. The galaxy belongs to its strongest. Survive if you can. Resistance is pointless. The words carried no threat. They were a statement of fact. The council was paralyzed. For 3,000 years, they had ruled the galaxy, shaped alliances, manipulated wars, and maintained balance. And now balance had ended. Humanity had returned as apex predators, and the galaxy would bend or burn. In human space, the fleets gathered for their final coordination. Ancient ships, long hidden and forgotten, now roared to life. Dreadnoughts like the Iron Rain led squadrons of fighters and frigates. Each vessel, every weapon, every crew member had trained for this moment for centuries. Patience had been their greatest weapon, and now it had been spent. The humans did not attack immediately. That was unnecessary. The demonstration had been enough. Coalition fleets had been shattered. Governments were trembling. Civilizations were reconsidering every decision they had ever made about humanity. Fear had already spread, and yet the humans advanced. Not with chaos, not with panic, but with a cold, deliberate method. Systems that had once mocked humanity now emptied their citizens in quiet panic. Colonies surrendered without a fight, offering whatever resources the humans demanded. Resistance was minimal, and where it existed, it was met with precision and efficiency. The galaxy realized a harsh truth. Humanity had not returned merely to defend itself. Humanity had returned to rule. The Council tried one last plea, broadcasting to Earth, sending emissaries with messages of surrender, begging for peace. The response was singular, chilling, and absolute. Peace is over. Humanity decides the rules now. Adapt or perish. It was not arrogance. It was certainty. Admiral Varick and the Council understood then what the galaxy had long forgotten. Humans had never fought merely to win. They fought to survive, to thrive, to test limits. And now, after 3,000 years of peace, they had returned to remind everyone of what had always been true. Humans were apex predators, unrivaled in strategy, unmatched in resilience, unstoppable when united. The surviving fleets of the coalition fled to the edges of the galaxy, hoping the humans would not pursue. Some did not survive the journey. Others surrendered, begging to join humanity, or at least to be spared from its judgment. And through it all, humanity moved not with vengeance, but with control. Their fleets stabilized sectors, prevented rebellions, and restored order where it suited them. The galaxy realized quickly that the humans were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were keepers of power. rulers whose strength could not be challenged. From the edge of the void, distant observers whispered the same words. Across species, across borders, across languages, the message was unanimous. The age of peace is over. The age of humans has begun, and in the dark reaches of space, the humans watched, waited, and smiled. The galaxy would remember this day. The galaxy would remember who they were. The truce of 3,000 years had ended. The hunters had returned, and mercy was over.